So let's talk about the big problem, which is lack of topical authority in your secondary locations. So, what do I mean with topical authority? I alluded to it a little while ago that Google has this concept of a knowledge graph. And what that essentially means is an aggregated uh, group of all of the information about an entity, which could be a person like you, an attorney, a law firm, celebrity. It could be anything. And this is how they organize their search results. It's all based on this idea of a knowledge graph that they will take a topic like law and then connect all of the individual parts that go into that overall topic. And so you'd have criminal law, personal injury, family, immigration, and then you'd have courts and jails and judges, and kind of like everything that you would, if you had to jot down a list of, write everything that's involved with law, go. That's what Google is looking at to determine, what is a topic all about, right? So if you take that mindset, you're going to also apply it to individual law firms and attorneys in a specific area. So if the search query that someone was looking at was criminal lawyer Atlanta, it's going to use that same methodology to understand the ecosystem or the landscape of criminal lawyers in Atlanta. So their number one goal with any search is to produce reliable, trustworthy results that ultimately satisfy the user's need, right? So if you were looking for a great taco in LA or Atlanta or Chicago, they are going to look at data like reviews, what people are saying, the amount of negative reviews. They're going to look at, are people talking about it in other news magazines or local blogs like Eater or other things like that. Similar concept, exactly the same concept actually, with lawyers, right? And so having this topical authority for your law firm is essential. And if you have benefited from a good presence on Google in your main location, that is a result of topical authority. So again, just like the taco example, Google is looking for reviews. They're looking at, are you listed on prominent websites like legal directories? Are you listed on the state's bar website? Are you maybe talked about in news coverage? All of these things factor in. These are all independent little signals that go into this overall fabric of whether or not you are an authority on that topic in this specific area, in this ecosystem. And so in practical terms, a big problem that we see is that when you set this up on your website and you create this secondary location or multiple secondary locations, you are really only giving your main city all of the love. And so your website is going to be focused almost exclusively on your main city. So let's go through an example with this. You are based in Seattle, but you are about to start a new location in Tacoma. If we were to look at your website, most likely your homepage, your practice areas, a lot of your blogs, all that stuff is going to reinforce this idea that you are in Seattle. You're talking about being a Seattle criminal lawyer, Seattle DUI lawyer, Seattle Med Mal, whatever the case is. And then what we typically see is, okay, we started a office location in Tacoma. We're going to put one page up on the website that says Tacoma criminal lawyer. That is problematic and is not going to really lead to success unless Tacoma is such a uncompetitive market that just having that one page and kind of the inherited success or visibility of your website pushes that through and gives you that visibility. But think about the comparison I used earlier. If you're moving into another city, you're adding one page. It's going to really be a tiny minor amount of presence compared to the attorney in Tacoma that's been there for 20 years, has 150 pages on their website, all about Tacoma, all about the courts, all about the judges, yada, yada, yada. All of that stuff is going to be factored in when someone searches Tacoma criminal lawyer. Google is going to look at all of that and say, who should we add here? Who should we show at the top of the list in order to give people the best experience possible? This person with one page that doesn't really seem to know much about Tacoma, doesn't seem to be invested in it, or this person over here, that's their life work, right? They're all about it. And so when this one page is the entire presence for that city, for your firm, you're not going to be able to really get the benefit from an SEO standpoint. Another problem is that this approach effectively kills your chances to rank in these secondary cities because you're not able to really show Google that you have any reason to rank in these cities, right? You have no depth of information about the secondary location, and to Google, you're essentially saying that we want to be known for Seattle. We want to be known for this main location, and that is really all we want to be known for. So the best way that you can show Google that you want to be known and generate presence in this secondary location is to talk about it, is to, in fact, talk about Tacoma, talk about the same practice areas that you do in Seattle in Tacoma specifically. And you're kind of building up this, case against the competition that you are just as credible, just as knowledgeable about that area. So how do we get to that? And what's the best way to accomplish this with your traditional website instead of doing a one-page city location? Well, the answer is to use a silo structure on your website. You might be asking, what is this, right? A silo is the idea that within a website, you have these organizational units that are going to be specific to that area or practice area that we're talking about. So you can zoom out of this and just think about it like any topic that you would want to cover and be seen as an authority on Google. You need to develop a very specific set of content about that topic to show that you have the authority, that you're filling out that knowledge graph we talked about. And so a silo really is just the, not personification, but manifestation of what a knowledge graph should look like. So go back to that example I talked about with law, right? So a silo would be all about law. So it's all of those individual parts that go into it. And then we might have another silo on the website about insurance, or I don't know what this website would be that has both, but you can then reduce that down into more specificity to show that you're an authority on kind of micro topics associated within that bigger topic, right? So it's almost like a Russian doll where you're stacking them inside of each other. And so at the top level might be law, but maybe you are a personal injury lawyer, and so your top level container would be personal injury law. And then you want to have space to develop topical authority for your practice areas and also your locations. So you can apply this to either one. And so let's go with the location example to kind of build this out so you can see it or think about it in practical terms. So each location is going to need its own silo and what I would call own space to develop that topical authority. You want to think about these as mini websites inside the main website, and you should really treat these each as an individual entity. Think about it like this. Each should have the kind of look and feel, the trappings of its own website within that specific location. Now, you don't need to have, an like 3 about pages or something like that, but just think about it as much as you want to add as much context as possible. And so um, let's go back to the Seattle and Tacoma example. If we were getting ready to launch a second location in Tacoma, what we would want to do is kind of map out what Google's going to look at, or what somebody would want to know about us in Tacoma. So we'd want to have a homepage essentially. So it'd be like, Mr. Lawyer, misslawyer.com/Tacoma. And we're thinking about that as the hub, right? So that page would want to occupy your number one keyword target for that area. So if it's personal injury, it would be like personal injury lawyer Tacoma. And that would just be the start, though. On that page, we'd want to have location details. We'd want to talk about the specific attorney that is maybe located there. You could also have a separate page for that attorney that talks about Tacoma lawyer, personal injury lawyer, such stuff like that. You could also have the location. You could talk about details of Tacoma, these little signals that are going to show that the area, kind of talk about things that are close to your law firm or your physical location. So that's the start, right? And that's where a lot of people stop. But what you really want to do is then build that out, with as many pages as makes sense. And so the ones that make the most sense right away are going to be building practice pages for that specific location. So a big mistake I see is that they will, if a firm will create a secondary location, but then they'll have only one set of practice pages on their website. And so with personal injury, you'd have an accident, auto accident, med mal, product liability, and each of those is going to be Seattle med mal lawyer, Seattle auto accident lawyer, Seattle, and so on. And then you only have one Tacoma page, right? And so what is that telling Google? That you only want Seattle visitors, right? You are appealing to the Seattle consumer. So to stand out and get on a similar trajectory or similar presence level as that attorney in Tacoma who's been there, their whole life, you need to build out separate practice pages for each of your practice areas like med mal and auto, but do it for Tacoma. So within that hub, you have sub pages for all of those individual practice areas. You can also then continue that to the extent of talking about the courts in Tacoma, the jails in Tacoma, any specifics about local ordinances or anything that might affect it, traffic accidents in Tacoma, traffic accident rates. All of this stuff is kind of going onto this tapestry of Tacoma that the ins and outs of that area. You're talking about it. And so it gives you more opportunities for Google to look and in that knowledge graph, identify that you're talking about this location, this practice area in a lot of detail. And thus, from that, they feel more confident to show you as an authority in that location. That's the big one. And if you just do that, you'll be in much better shape than 90% of other firms out there who are applying this strategy.